Sarah thought she was just having a conversation. It was 2023, and she'd been using ChatGPT to help plan her sister's wedding, asking about venue ideas, writing thank you card drafts, even workshopping her maid of honor speech. The AI was helpful, even charming in its responses. What Sarah didn't know was that every word she typed, every detail about her family, every personal anecdote she shared, might become part of the machine. Not just stored somewhere in a server, but woven into the very fabric of how the AI thinks. She's not alone. Right now, at this very moment, millions of people are feeding the largest intelligence experiment in human history, and most of them have no idea they're participating. The data harvesting happening behind our screens makes the old Facebook privacy scandals look quaint. We're not just talking about targeted ads anymore. We're talking about something far more profound and, frankly, more disturbing. The artificial intelligence systems being built today don't just need data. They're ravenous for it. They consume text, images, videos, voices, and even the subtle patterns of how we type and pause and think. And the tech giants building these systems have developed an appetite that most of us never agreed to satisfy. Let me take you back to a moment that changed everything. In 2016, a team at OpenAI made a discovery that would reshape the entire AI industry. They found that language models, the technology behind chatbots, got exponentially smarter the more data you fed them. Not just a little smarter, dramatically, almost magically more capable. This wasn't a linear improvement, it was a power law. Feed the model 10 times more data, and it doesn't just get 10 times better. It leaps forward in ways that surprised even the researchers. Suddenly, data wasn't just useful. It was the most valuable resource on Earth, more valuable than oil, more critical than gold, and the race was on. But here's the thing about that much data. It doesn't exist in neat, prepackaged, legally licensed bundles. The amount of text needed to train something like GPT-4 is staggering. We're talking about hundreds of billions of words. That's essentially a significant chunk of the entire internet. Every public website, every forum post, every blog, every comment section argument about whether Die Hard is a Christmas movie, Reddit threads where people confess their deepest secrets. Stack Overflow answers where programmers debug code at 3 in the morning. Recipe blogs where someone's grandmother's cookie recipe is preceded by a 2,000-word story about childhood summers in Vermont. All of it scraped, ingested, transformed into the neural pathways of artificial minds. Now, you might be thinking, but that's public information, right? It's on the internet. Fair game. And that's exactly what the tech companies are counting on you thinking. But let's dig deeper, because this is where it gets really interesting and really troubling. In 2023, a group of artists made a disturbing discovery. They found their artwork, pieces they'd spent hundreds of hours creating and had posted online in their portfolios, being used to train AI image generators. Not just used. Essentially, these systems had learned to mimic their unique styles, the very signature that made their work theirs. Imagine spending a decade developing a distinctive artistic voice, only to have a machine learn it in seconds and then compete with you in the marketplace. One artist described it as having your DNA stolen to create a clone that undercuts your prices. But it's not just artists. In 2024, the New York Times sued OpenAI and Microsoft, revealing that millions of their articles had been used for training without permission or compensation. Articles that cost millions of dollars to research, write, and fact-check. Pulitzer Prize-winning journalism reduced to training data. Then there are the authors. Thousands of books, still under copyright, found their way into training data sets. Books that took years to write, that represent the culmination of someone's creative life, fed into the machine without a single royalty payment. Margaret Atwood's prose, Neil Gaiman's stories, medical textbooks, philosophy treatises, all of it training AI to write in ways that could replace the very people who created that knowledge in the first place. Here's where it gets even stranger. Remember Sarah? Planning her sister's wedding? The conversations you have with AI assistants exist in a legal gray zone. When you use ChatGPT, Claude, or any of these services, you're usually agreeing to terms that allow the company to use your conversations to improve their models. That means your private thoughts, your creative ideas, your personal problems, your business strategies, they could all become part of how the AI learns. One CEO shared with his AI assistant a confidential business strategy for entering a new market. Another person discussed their medical symptoms in detail, seeking advice before seeing a doctor. A screenwriter workshopped an original screenplay, scene by scene. A therapist, and yes, this actually happened, used an AI to help summarize session notes. Each conversation, potentially absorbed into the training data, potentially accessible in some transformed way to future users. But the real kicker? You don't even need to use these services yourself to have your data in them. In 2019, IBM was caught using faces from a massive photo database to train facial recognition AI. The photos came from Creative Commons, posted by people who thought they were just sharing vacation snapshots. Suddenly, grandmother's birthday party photos were teaching machines how to recognize human faces. Some of those faces belonged to children. Their faces, their biometric data, now part of a commercial AI system their parents never consented to. The tech giants argue they're operating within the law. They point to a legal doctrine called fair use, the same principle that lets you quote a book in a review or sample a song in a parody. They say training AI is transformative, that it creates something new, and therefore doesn't violate copyright. It's a clever argument, and it might even be right, legally speaking. But here's the question that keeps me up at night. Just because something is legal, does that make it right? Consider this. When Google digitized millions of books for Google Books, they faced massive lawsuits. Eventually, courts ruled it was fair use because the books remained intact, users could only see snippets, and it created a searchable database that benefited the public. But AI training is different. The original works essentially dissolve into the model. You can't point to where your specific data lives inside the AI's neural network. It's everywhere and nowhere, transformed into weights and parameters and mathematical relationships. It's like asking where exactly your grandmother's recipe influenced the chef who ate at her restaurant once 20 years ago. The influence is real, but diffuse, impossible to isolate or extract. Meanwhile, the profits are very real and very concentrated. OpenAI is valued at over $80 billion. Anthropic, Google's DeepMind, Meta's AI division, we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars in value built on the backs of data created by millions of people who will never see a cent of those profits. Some countries are starting to push back. The European Union's AI Act includes provisions about data transparency and consent. Japan has stricter rules about copyrighted materials in training data. But these regulations are playing catch-up to technology that's already been built, already deployed, already shaping how millions of people work and think and create. And here's the twist that should genuinely frighten you. We're still in the early days. The AI systems being built now are going to need even more data. They're training on video, on audio, on medical records, on private messages, on everything they can possibly access. Some researchers are already discussing using brain imaging data to train AI. Your thoughts themselves could one day be training data. There's a darker side to this that we need to confront. When AI is trained on data from the internet, it's trained on all of it. The brilliant and the banal, the kind and the cruel. Every bias, every prejudice, every toxic idea that's ever been posted online becomes part of how these systems understand the world. They learn racism from racist forums. They learn sexism from decades of gendered language. They learn conspiracy theories and misinformation right alongside facts. The tech companies try to filter this out, to align their models with human values. But it's like trying to unbake a cake. The ingredients are already mixed in. So what can we do? Some artists and writers are fighting back in court, and those cases could reshape how AI companies operate. Some are using tools that poison their data, making it unusable for training. It's digital self-defense, a way of saying, you can look, but you can't touch. Others are advocating for a new kind of data rights. The idea that you should own your digital output the same way you own physical property, and that no one should be able to use it without permission and compensation. Imagine a world where every time AI uses your data to train, you get a micropayment. It sounds far-fetched until you realize that's exactly how music royalties work. But here's the uncomfortable truth. We're all complicit in this system. Every time we click "I agree" without reading the terms, every time we post something online, every time we use these AI tools despite knowing how they're trained, we're feeding the machine. We've traded our data for convenience so many times that it feels normal now. Sarah Chen, our wedding planner from the beginning, eventually learned about data training. She felt betrayed, like she'd been tricked into giving away something precious. But she also admitted something surprising. She still uses AI because it's helpful, because it's everywhere now, because opting out feels impossible. And maybe that's the real price we're paying, not just the loss of our data, but the loss of our ability to choose. We're living in a world where artificial intelligence is becoming essential for work, for creativity, for staying competitive. And that intelligence was built on a foundation we never agreed to construct. Our words, our images, our ideas, quietly harvested and transformed into something that might one day surpass us. The question isn't whether AI is useful. Of course it is. The question is whether we're building it the right way, and whether the future it creates will belong to everyone or just to the few who control the data. The machine is already learning, it's already changing, and it's learning from us, whether we consent it or not. The only question left is, what happens when it's finished learning and starts teaching us instead?